takes a minute for it to actually go through and start up. And
I'll be back.
okay,
like 10 seconds.
no problem. Hello. 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 All right, we have folks coming in. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to our final session here. You know, this is a little bit of a you know, just a little extra thing we threw on the end. I'd like to introduce friend and colleague, Sally Applin, Dr. Sally Applin. And
Finally,
yes.
I made it. I finished.
Yes. Who has the wonderful a Twitter handle, Anthropunk. We're going to just share some reflections, but I really wanted this to be a session by and for the makers who participated today. We'd love to hear from you. You can share that in the chat, but also bring you on to talk a little bit, maybe a reflection and an idea. You know, this is a great experiment done at a very important time. You know, I just reflected on my own group. Matthew Wettergreen of Rice University wrote me an email on April 17th, said it would be a good idea if he could put together an online maker fair around COVID-19. And 36 days later, it's happened. And I'm really happy to see all the people that came together and the sharing, and just really amazing work here. So thank you all for you know, taking this up. But you know, it actually, I think we were right to design it in a way that reflects the maker community. It's like, I was thinking today, people have learned not only to use Zoom, but now to be Zoom producers, right? To create their own sessions, invite people, organize it. And you know, I've been doing it maybe a couple months now. So there's some live programs here, but I had to learn it, and now a lot of other people have learned. And we look at someone like, oh gosh, look at that person, the way they moderate a group, or look at this other person, how they present, and this works better than that. So we're all experimenting together here, and I'm really glad to have that. Well, let me start with Sally, and Sally, just share some reflections that you've been to Maker Faire. You wrote a very nice piece recently about Maker Faire and have written about it in the past. So I thought you'd be a good person outside of my both immediate circle that could just reflect on what's going on.
Oh, sure. And actually, we talked a little bit before, but for people that have joined, I live across the street from the San Mateo County Fairground. And it's so interesting that the first year that there's not a Maker Faire is the year that there's a COVID hospital at the San Mateo and testing center at the San Mateo County Fairgrounds. And once again, the maker movement sort of on the edge of what to do next, which is go online, do what you need to do, work in a distributed way globally.
Yeah.
This was a phenomenal event, and I loved dipping into different sessions as much as I could in the past 24 hours. I really enjoyed Fritz and Stevens, I think it's Fritz and Stevens, right? Talk on how you set the way you work from 1 to 10 to 100, and the way that they think about their process and how that can translate to various kind of anything, right? I was thinking about using it for my writing or other things, because I make knowledge. That's what I do as a researcher. And I tuned in the middle of the morning and watched, I think it's DK Robots did a dual thermometer for bicycle seats. So you could trigger the thermometer and know how hot the seat was and the temperature outside, so you wouldn't burn yourself. And even without any Chinese translation, I understood the project. It was so well documented. It was just beautiful. Probably the most pivotal presentation I saw that I think is critically important, both for COVID, for the future, and for makers, is what Ada Fruit's talk. And the reason why it was so moving to me is what they're making really is sociability. And the things that they make as a result of those social connections is the product and the service that they provide to the community. But the way that they're able to do that is because they make these relationships. So I watched them describe their company. I watched them describe their company during COVID. I watched them describe how they talk about the safety and security of their employees as if it was as important to them as any of the materials that they work with, as any of the ideas that they have that are important to them. The people that help make what they make are such an asset to them. And to hear them talk about, well, as a company, we send thermometers home with our employees. We send masks home. We want to be sure that they and their families are safe. Like the way that they handle that infrastructure and safety was just phenomenal. But mostly it was just this complete compassionate empathy and caring for humanity, and not just their own inner circle, but by extension, who they're making for when they make emergency supplies, and also who they relate to in terms of their vendors and their suppliers. There just seemed to be this overwhelming foundation of relationship and sociability, which is so much a part of all of this movement. It was just a fantastic presentation. It was very, very insightful. And I realized, well, part of what you have to make in order to really, really make is to make relationships.
Yeah. Well, I think there's that's what's kind of fascinating. I wrote a story last week about the Montana mask, and it was a neurosurgeon in Billings, Montana, who his hospital told him that he had to reuse masks, that they were running out. And he said, I can't do that. I'm in brain surgery and masks are dirty. So he sketched an idea on a receipt, scanned it and sent it off to a dentist friend who had a son who knew 3D printing, that learned in high school how to design things. And, it just started a whole process, but it wasn't just about the design. A woman, Corey Hawks, decided, she wanted to help somewhere. And on Facebook, she found out about the Montana mask, and she called them up and said, I'm going to give this idea legs. And she's the one that kind of spread it and worked on it, because this neurosurgeon had to go back to working in the hospital. And she really focused on the community building side and the community organizing side. And it's so important here. And we saw so many, I think, groups here today. The reflection I wanted to kind of share is, I started in the morning with a session with Joseph Prusa, but I had pre-recorded a session with Adrian Boyer, who's from the UK. Boyer was really a creator of the RepRap project in 2004. The idea of self-replicating machines. He made an open source platform for 3D printing. And that sort of kicks off a whole thing. There were 3D printers that existed, but they were in industry, and they were $50 to $150 to $250,000. But it kicks off this wave eventually that 10 to 15 years later, there are 3D printers in lots of hands of lots of people, just like the dentist's son in Montana, of all places, who could execute this and make this real. And Joseph Prusa was an early RepRap builder before he had a company, before he had 3D printers. And he turns around and builds this signature face shield, the Prusa shield, that we saw today is made in all kinds of places. And in Atlanta, there was a group, Atlanta Beats COVID, ABC, that gave a presentation. And I'm going to try to share my screen for a moment to show you a picture. So they were building face shields. They mobilized to serve them in the area. And they actually built some that were molded. They used 3D printers to create molds, and then used silicone to fill the mold and create a different kind of face shield. Well, this involved a number of different maker spaces. And the one woman that was making the most molds was Skylar. And here's a picture of Skylar. I hope this comes up.
Oh, I love that.
And she had to postpone her wedding. And so one of the makers that she was working with made her a PPE tiara for her wedding. And, it just shows you the creativity and the different directions that open up here. And that really made me happy. And just that, I don't know if I can get over there, but I'll just cursor back. But, that kind of thing where we find the expressive power in even a functional thing. It breaks out. I really like that.
And also, it also shows knowing someone. One of the things I've been thinking a lot about lately is social trust. And I think to be able to make in the way that makers make, you have to have a particular kind of trust with someone else, whether you're trusting your suppliers or you're trusting the relationships you have with someone. And all of these projects not only show trust, but they show, especially that tiara, someone who really knew the person.
Yeah. Well, the other side, the irony of a lot of this is it takes about 10 years or so to build these maker spaces and get them deployed and get 3D printers in them, and then they're shut down. But it's actually the network of people that were connected through those spaces. Another story in Detroit, a group of former tech shop employees, including the founder, now works at Ford in a D Ford, a design prototyping set. And the request came to them to make PPE. Could Ford make PPE? And they found a design in Wisconsin. But they had the sense that they had to go out and talk to healthcare professionals, but they didn't know anyone. And one of the person on the team, they started asking who knows people. And one of them, his wife owns a salon and she's a hairstylist. And she said, well, I cut the hair of all these emergency room doctors. And so it was like these two networks just connecting, and they got to go in. And once they delivered a set of PPE and it got into the news, they were welcome everywhere because they were very helpful. So those overlapping networks and interconnecting networks. In Chicago, it was at DePaul University, it was the maker community, a physics community of professors, and a bike coalition that all worked together. So it really quite fascinating.
It makes sense, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see, Shigeru. I'm gonna see. Let's see if I can bring Shigeru Kobayashi. I'm gonna promote you to a panelist, and we should see you in a moment here. I believe you are calling from Tokyo, or engaging from Tokyo, and hopefully we'll see you in a moment. But Shigeru gave a presentation last night on, I don't see you yet, but we'll connect. Hopefully that'll.
He says, hi, it's me, but I don't see his picture.
Yeah. Are you, I made you a co-host. Maybe turn your camera on if it's not. Or I made you a panelist, Shigeru. Well, let's see. Let me see if he's panelist. Yeah, there you are. Unmute. No.
I don't see him on my panel.
Well, Jillian, if you could help on that. I see his name, and I thought I'd picked him.
He needs to unmute and turn his video on.
Yeah.
Doko, no, how does it go? Doko video wa.
If that's him, but all right. Well, in case it didn't work, but
oh, he cannot. He says.
Okay, so but at any rate, he had I just wanted to. He said he really thought that his doing a maker fair online was pretty successful, and he liked that. He did miss the in-person event, and he thought that the other event, that in the future, that his maker fair would be what he called hybrid. And there you are, Shigeru. So I'll let you go. Welcome, Shigeru.
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much for inviting me. Oh, I'm really excited to be here.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah. So tell us just a little bit what you said last night. What was it like doing your Kyoto Maker Faire virtually?
Yes, so actually, so first of all, to make sure so there is no misunderstanding. So I am not the overall organizer of Maker Faire Kyoto 2020 online. So, but rather
Right.
than a panel discussion organizer. So anyway, so the event was, basically online. So the people tweeted their works, so final works. So additionally, so the people share the process. So, and some people try to broadcast on site their, the context. So, and some people try to, exhibit in a BL space.
Yeah. And what did you think you were talking about? You thought that Maker Fairs in the future ought to be hybrid events.
Yes, so we are talking about that. So because through the event reminded me that makers are full of creativity. So, but the time and space is limited at a maker fair. So it's a fantastic opportunity to meet people in real. So, but if we combine so online doesn't have to be synchronous. We can communicate asynchronous way. So put process online or maybe try broadcast for online or people who cannot leave their home. So in some reason, for instance, I don't know, the money or maybe so have to take care of family. So but they can also exhibit from home to the site. So maybe we can combine some various ways to make a fair a hybrid. Just an fragment of ideas.
Yeah.
It also enables it to be really data rich. So it takes kind of looking at computer data on the floor of Maker Faire away, because you can reference it. It's not going to go anywhere and it's available, but it enables you to really connect with people and then use those relationships that you have in person to help you have them online.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll, these are all experiments. I think this is one of many, and other groups will do it and we'll learn from it. But I do, I was really conscious of this a little bit, what Sally's saying. This becomes a record, almost a snapshot in time of a lot of what people are doing. And Guy Cavalcanti spoke today that he's the organizer of the open source medical supplies group. And, it was 75 days ago that he started the Facebook group. He posted for 75 days ago. And I said to him, 90 days ago, we didn't know any of this would be necessary, right? And or what we'd be doing. At the beginning of the year, we had no idea. And something that happens, in a sense, right after the Chinese New Year in China affects us all, and we all feel it throughout the world, and we're still experiencing this and dealing with it. So it both shows how connected we are and how fast things can change, which I think is really fascinating. And what really I think I find so remarkable about the community itself is we are really good at adapting to this change. This is our moment. This is what we were preparing for, and maybe not knowing about it. Another person I interviewed today was Carl Bass, Autodesk CEO, who had been making PPE in his shop in Berkeley. He's retired from Autodesk, but he made decisions around Fusion 360 to make it available for free. And like the Montana dentist's son, he learned Fusion 360. Prusa was designing it in his team in Fusion 360. So, these skills have passed around the world and made people more capable. And they didn't, and I think it's just as humans, we kind of develop those capabilities, not knowing exactly how we're going to apply them. And this COVID-19 has been a real good example of the time to apply them. Yeah, go on, Sally.
There's a couple things that I just wanted to say while you were on that point. The first one is that I think makers in general are flexible people, flexible folk in terms of how they apply tools and solve problems. And this is just another interesting constraint and bigger problem to work with. But the second one is that makers are also really good at making tools. And every time you introduce a new tool, you introduce new capabilities to make new tools. So it's fascinating to see that happen so quickly with the development of these, the PPE and the other kind of critical things that are necessary now, in that we're seeing tool development grow, and we're seeing capabilities from that tool development to make new tools faster too.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. Jillian, do you think you could bring Matthew Wettergreen on to join us? If it might take a while, so it might be easier if you do that. You know, I also, Matthew had his students present today, and I've often thought that, you know, one of the things that design and engineering programs do, they often have capstone projects. I'd really love to see more students doing projects. Hi, Matthew. And so I sat in your session today. Students did COVID-19 related projects. They didn't have access to the makerspace at school. They had to do it largely online. Matthew, welcome. Do you want to talk about their experience? But I thought it was great for them to have a forum to present even to a broader community and make a record of that.
Yeah, well, thanks for bringing me on, Dale, and thanks for you and the team for Virtually Maker Faire. I think it was extraordinary. So two groups talked. One was a class that is geared towards excellence in prototyping and fabrication. And it's hard to teach prototyping and fabrication when you're all at home and you have different needs. And I think the equity issues of going virtual have never been more apparent in a situation like this. But we that they could do COVID-related projects. In this particular class, they did a laser cut face shield. And then in the second class, which is a Fusion 360 based CAD class, as well as they learned end topology and some visualization, they created their own projects that would address any broad COVID need. And this particular group of students developed a purse that was UV sterilizable for masks that you could take on public transportation. And one of the things that I thought was really important that you said, Dale, was that there's no agreement on what the best face shield is. And so having many students design the exact same sort of constraints will result in a multitude of outcomes. And what we saw was just 3, but there were actually 6 in the class. And so I think you could replicate that with an even larger class virtually.
Yeah.
And those can get applied differently too. So maybe the way they're designed, they have different applications for different kinds of situations.
Yeah. That when I was talking to Adrian Boyer, he was kind of using the evolution idea that in a sense, you know, things like 3D printers and stuff allow lots of designs to be propagated, and not all of them will be successful, and that's fine, but it's better than just having only one, you know, or a few.
And also sometimes the design, if it doesn't work as a shield, it will work.
Yeah. Oop. Let's see. Sally is frozen. You're still there, Matthew, aren't you?
Yes, I am here, Dale.
Okay.
Yeah. Dale, I had one thing to share, and it was an observation.
No.
It's a little strange, but I wanted to just tell you.
Did we crash, or is it just me?
You're back. You're back. Okay, Matthew, come on.
So this might be a strange observation, but I think it's something that we can all ponder. In some ways, we've never been further apart. We're sort of locked in our homes or locked in locations, and we can't really sort of touch or interact with people in ways that we normally were. But in other perspectives, we've never been working at such intimate levels. Face shields, masks, ventilators. We're learning about our bodies. We're learning about the shape of our faces. We're learning about the amount of air in one breath. In some ways, some people who are not biologically inclined or have not taken medical school classes, they're learning more about anatomy and physiology than they ever have. And so working distantly has actually made makers much closer than we've ever been.
Yeah. Well, it kind of and another related point that I was thinking today is everybody that's joining is joining from home or a workspace. And instead of coming to a central place, we're actually in some cases seeing where people actually do their work and where they spend their time. And that is also very intimate.
And I think
yeah.
I've also noticed too that within that, it's almost that it doesn't matter. I mean, we're in very urgent times. So curation of a background is less important as what you can do. The last Fast Company article I wrote on status was talking about how status is changing from how great things look to really what you can do to get us out of this or protect yourself or whatever. And that shifts that to makers. And when you're talking about something critical, all that stuff goes away.
Yeah.
It's nice to see it, but if somebody's in a bedroom, who cares if they can make a mask that works?
Yeah, it's kind of like the old internet and nobody knows you're a dog thing, you know. Karen Corliss, you're in the audience. You did a panel on Colorado's Maker Response. Could I bring you on to say hello and a few thoughts? I'm going to promote you up and see if you want. Come on, and you had a really nice group of people that are working across there. There's Karen. If you unmute yourself.
Hey.
Hi, Karen.
Let me get my glasses on.
It's all right.
I was expecting to sit here in the back.
I think you're illustrating my intimate point here.
Let me get myself together here. Speaking of working from home, we're all
yeah. Well, tell us how you moderated a panel. You said it was a bit of a learning. That's a good thing, though.
Yeah. It was first panel. We really we kind of pulled it together last minute, and we realized we wanted to focus on not the products that we were making, but the process we were using to make these products and make these connections. And some of the things we talked about that were, I think, stood out were that our communication systems, degrade is a bad word, but we were doing text, telephone, email. I mean, we were calling people on the phone. People were picking up too, because some people didn't have access to email or there was some other situation, but we were looking at this as a disaster relief situation, and we were trying to connect with people at their level of where they could connect. So if there were some tools that perhaps there was a forum that they could not get into, we went a step down. We said, we'll send you an email with the links. And if they didn't have email, we'll call you on the phone. So we learned a lot of things about, I guess, in general, disaster relief in a way, because we were, from day one, we were like, what are we doing? Let's do this thing. And it took us in some of our groups, 4 to 5 days to kind of get basic systems and basic communication systems in place. And then from there, we expanded out. And then we still had, especially for our sewists, phone was the only way, so thought that was kind of something that came up today.
So one other thing I loved in your, was a person that is an artist that was making masks, and in some ways the discussion was someone made a comment about makers sort of just going ahead and not asking for permission. And she said, I'm an artist and everybody tells me that's a dumb choice in life, but I'm going to do it. I'm determined to do it. I'm not asking for permission. So, she used an expletive and said, I'm going to do it anyway. And I thought, I just love that there's a currency in our community about acting, about doing something that I think one of the failures we see in some of our institutions is they want it to be perfect, or they don't have enough information, and it really stymies them from doing anything.
Well, so, perfect or profitable. I mean,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
It does remind me, Karen, though, of the Crisis Commons group, which was an early group I studied. And when I was watching the Adafruit presentation today, they talked about what they learned from Hurricane Sandy, and that's kind of why in so many ways they're on top of this now. So it all intersects.
Yep. Yeah, we brought in all our producers essentially. You know, I'm a former producer, Maker Faire, you know, and we live in chaos. You know, if you think about it, when you're running a Maker Faire, it's just chaos from, you know, Thursday to Sunday. So,
It
this
really
is where we thrive, in fact.
No, that's very, very true. Hey, Brian Jepson, if you're on there, I'm going to try to promote you on. And Brian is from Rhode Island, does the Maker Faire in Providence. He used to work with me, but let's see if Brian can come on. He did 3 sessions today.
Hello there.
Hey, Brian, how are you?
Hey,
Good to see you.
how you doing?
Yeah. How did your sessions go?
They went really well. You wouldn't believe it, but it was actually 5 sessions.
5? Oh my goodness.
5. Well, and
You
I
snuck in 2 at the last minute there.
Yeah, I didn't do them so much as produce them and you know, get people organized. It was you know, it was kind of like a furious week of scheduling Skype and Zoom recordings. I tried both and had better luck with Zoom, but it was and then a lot of editing in Camtasia. So it was learning a lot of things I didn't know yet.
Yeah, good. Well, give us an example of one of the sessions.
Well, there was one that was 2, which is probably why the disparity of the count. So we had one group who Dr. Monbeer Sodi and Dr. Irene Andro, I'm not sure I'm saying her name right. They worked on sort of two-part work. One of them is testing various filter materials. The idea being that, well, there are going to be places in the world they're going to have shortages of N95 masks, N95 material, and let's look at what other things are out there. You know, everything from N95 material itself to you know, shop towels, to the halyard material that University of Florida was using for the sewn masks. But then the other part of it was Dr. Sodi was working on DIY materials that you could make. And what they've been working with was a newspaper slurry where you put newspapers first through a shredder, cross-cut shredder, and then into a blender, and then you compress it, and you make a mask that looks just, shape-wise, looks just like an N95 mask. And it has, I mean, we're not confident saying that it has filter properties identical to that of an N95 mask, but it's on the scale from a cloth mask to an N95 mask, it's way closer to the N95. And then I'll wrap up with this. Some great synergy there was I had sandwiched another presentation in between those two, and that was about using ambu bags to create emergency ventilators. And turns out one of the makers here in Rhode Island who worked on that has specialized in compressing non-woven natural materials, and now they're all going to work together and maybe make something really awesome that works. I don't want to say as well as an N95 mask because there's so much testing protocol around it, but you know, it might be. You know, it was exciting.
Well, that's great. You know, Tanya, I'm going to bring you on. I think I asked you, Tanya Fish, she does some wonderful workshops and things. We'll just add folks over here. Tanya's in the UK, and it's 2:30 in the morning, I believe, or 3:30 by now. So there's some hardy souls up here. But see if Tanya comes on here. There's Tanya. Hi, Tanya.
Hello. It's it's just gone 3 in the morning here.
Oh my goodness, you're a trooper. Tell it. Look at. Well, I just love your background. You got all kinds of visuals for us to look at.
And you're organized. Look at that.
Yeah. But tell us what you did today.
I did a presentation on how making helps your mental health and helps people who are experiencing difficulties, maybe anxiety and worries, especially in the current situation. I thought it was particularly relevant. to the maker movement and how a lot of people have found making very helpful for their mental health. So I wanted to sort of spotlight that and let people know that, you know, it's okay if you're working on something that helps your mind, even if it's not necessarily productive. So I've been sat here listening to everybody else while knitting socks. So.
That's great. Well, and you, the comment here that you thought the virtual Maker Faire helped the sense of connection across the world, and I think that's wonderful. I've noticed even doing some of the I do a Plan C live program, and you know, you can invite 10 or 12 people into a space, and they can be all different parts of the world, and you would never do that for a physical conference. You'd always get 1 or 2 people to show up out of 10, right? So it's really great.
Reset us, right? They reset us in the way that we connect with one another. So if we are asynchronous, we have that charge that we got from all meeting together.
Yeah, I think so. And it was interesting to see how everybody across the world has responded to the same thing, because it's a big shared experience that we're all having right now. And so to see all the makers all doing the same sort of, everything is focused on community and looking after other people and giving something back and solving those problems. It's essentially what being a maker is all about.
Exactly.
And everyone drew from experiences that they got going to maker fairs, right? That built up over a period of years, and all that kind of came to also enable great communication and understanding online as well.
Yeah, so I physically traveled to maker fairs. So I've been to the Bay Area and presented there, and I've been to New York and presented there. And so it was seeing familiar faces as well, was like really kind of like, oh, these are these makers that I know from this place and makers I know from that place. And again, it was that community thing.
There was Fab Labs did a wonderful session this morning. I think Neil Gershenfeld had sent out a message to the Fab Lab network in May, said Fab does not wait. And so we named that the panel after that. But they really had, you know, all parts of the world represented on the panel. And, you know, just one that I remember was Dar es Salaam, Tanzania woman, you know, and it was, you know, her slide was the maker response in Dar es Salaam, you know, and it's just, the patterns are very much in this, you know, very similar and with unique properties, but the communities have really connected and come together and supported each other. So it's quite amazing. Yeah. Well, let's see. I want to share my screen. I'm going to show you one picture and bring on another person here. Let's see if I get the right picture up first. If anyone wants to say anything while I do my, let's see, there it is. Let's see if I can get that larger. Let's see, just a moment here. Share my screen. I am sharing. This is a photo of it, tweet that I saw from Christine Noble, who's in the audience here, the Starflower. She did a session on mask making and made a wonderful makey version of that for us. I don't know if it comes across bright enough, but let me bring Christine up, and if I get back to my main screen here. Oh, not that one. Let's see, sorry. Oh, where'd it go? Okay, stop share. There we are. Okay, let me see if I can bring Christine on. And I just want to hear, Christine, if you could share how Christine actually, I think last year or so did a session on making vegan leather out of the kombucha SCOBY. It was a really great presentation at Maker Faire and online. Do we have Christine? There she is. Hi, Christine.
Hi.
How are you?
I am really good. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate this year. Here's that little mask that I made.
That's wonderful. So you have a design background and working with textiles and all kinds of things. So what was your experience today and your experience during COVID-19?
Well, my experience today was, honestly, I've been fortunate enough to be teaching via Zoom. And so I led my session via Zoom. And so I didn't have too many hiccups because of the experience of my past. Sorry, I'm but overall it was really great. I was excited to see how many people were interested in what I had to say. And I really came to this presentation, not necessarily from the science background, but more from the design background. And as far as like making a mask that you want to wear, just because if you're not going to want to wear a mask, then if your mask doesn't fit you and doesn't fit your personality, why would you wear that mask? Like what you wear is how you present to the world. Overall, I would say I had a really great experience today. I had some really wonderful comments in my chat, and I was able to answer questions, and I'm not sure what else to add. I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's fine. It just, I think it's just really just recognizing the people and the different things they did here today. Sally, one of the things you mentioned was trust, in particular in communities. And I've felt over the last couple of years, particularly, that a lot of our hopes for the internet were being dashed because of the lack of trust and the difficulty of really having communal experiences online. I mean, we were worried about Zoom bombing and those kind of things happening today. It didn't. I didn't hear of any issues. But I think it's such a incredible goal for us to be able to gather as a community and create positive experiences, not just for the makers, but everybody that's involved here. And so I'm, getting positive feedback is really important. Whether, Matthew, it's your students, whether you're a maker, whether you're doing a workshop. I mean, that's kind of what drives, I think, has driven Maker Faire, because someone says something to you about your project or engages you with it, and it means everything. It's really important process here. So I think I'm glad to see we're able to make that happen today.
The other thing that's, we wrote about this a while in, like, I don't know, 2011, 10, something. We talked about, you can make and you can share making and you can still maintain your privacy. You don't have to disclose much about yourself personally to be able to share and do that. And I think that's a strength of the community. In particular, what you do, kind of transcending other forms of social judgment, is really nice too, to see that as well in the community.
Yeah.
And that enables trust, right? And enables people to feel free to share.
And I just think someone, David Martin just writes, from my experience, makers by definition are kind and caring individuals. And I think some of the words, one of the words I came away from Maker Faire always feeling was generosity, a sense of people are willing to share, and that's why they do this. And some people don't understand that, and I think, part of what drives me a bit is can we help people understand this community better? But mostly they'll understand it by participating in it, because it's a good thing. But I think especially sometimes when we've had lows, it's people are skeptical. What do hobbyists have to offer? What do crafters have to offer? And they're partially, I think they're skeptical sometimes of people that aren't driven by a business motive.
Now that people are stuck in their home, they really value of new makers, right? Because no one knows how to do anything unless they can make.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no, it's great. You went out a little bit on the.
Well, COVID just got you a new group of makers because we're all stuck at home.
Well, I think that in two ways. Mike Sinise, who wrote about this, is kind of a resurgence of interest in DIY, from everybody doing, I dropped into a panel at 4 o'clock that had 50 people on open source gardening, hydroponics. I think there's people are trying to figure out. I think not only maybe the pleasure side of that, but also the self-sufficiency side of that. Reducing your impact and all these other things, I think are going to have a much more resonant context for us now. So I think that's important. Nick? Did someone raise their hand? Is that what I'm seeing up there? I can't tell. I thought Nick but that might have just been my thing here. So maybe not. Well, listen, I think we'll kind of bring this together because it's been a long day for many. But I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you, each of you, for coming on. You make this special. This is kind of I think the magic of a live thing is you don't sometimes know who you bring together and to actually talk to them and interact with them. And thank you, each of you, for being part of Virtually Maker Faire, the very first one, at least, that we've done. So take care, stay safe, and let's keep making and keep making the world better. Thank you.
Thanks, Dale.